Hey, so this is my second film analysis. It's a review of the movie Crimson Tide from 1995. This is a very good movie. It's got Hugh Jackman, Denzel Washington, James Gandolfini, and a couple other famous actors. I chose this movie because it's got a really interesting plot, it's got great actors, and it's got really high reviews. I'd never heard of it before this project for the class, so I was excited to watch it. It's a movie that's based on just after the Cold War times, and it's about a nuclear submarine crew for the USA that's defending the country against a possible Russian rebel nuclear threat. And it's got a lot of different themes in it, like who is the real enemy? Is it the Russians or the nuclear war itself, or nuclear wars themselves? Presentation of self is another theme because it's a bunch of military guys who they're friendly and they're nice and they create friendships and bonds, but they also kind of gotta show the authority and show that they're leaders and follow orders. Another one is the idea of where does the better knowledge come from, education or experience. This can be seen with Captain Ramsey and Executive Officer Hunter. Captain Ramsey is, he's the captain of the ship. He's got many years of combat experience, hands-on combat experience, while Executive Officer Hunter is the new guy, and he's pretty much never been in combat before. He's gone up through the ranks based on his education at colleges and stuff like that, military education. I decided to go with the theme of the philosophical thesis of the movie's got a lot of parts in it that are based on the idea of balancing what is morally correct and wrong, morally correct, right and wrong, with the balance of belief and procedure and following orders. This can be seen in many cases throughout the movie. There's three scenes that I noted specifically that are for my philosophical thesis and kind of prove my point that this is a big part of the movie. The first scene that I discussed in my review of the movie paper is when the captain and executive officer are in a big heated argument. The tensions kind of came to a boiling point, and they're pretty much both telling the chief of command to arrest one another. The chief of command, he's kind of Captain Ramsey's right-hand man, but he's also, he's kind of siding with the executive officer, Hunter. He voiced his opinion to Hunter earlier in the movie, and it's pretty much a tough decision for him because he's either got to arrest the guy that he's been with for years working together, or go with his gut and kind of trust his judgment of Hunter being the one who's correct. He ends up arresting the Captain Ramsey and pretty much puts this decision puts Officer Hunter in charge as the temporary captain. The chief of commander later says that this was just a decision based on procedure, not on morals, even though it kind of seems like he made this decision because he felt it was the right choice and the best thing to do for the country, not strictly based on procedure. This is a good scene that kind of deals with the philosophical issue of he was following his moral judgments even though he said it was based on procedure and following orders. It was pretty obvious that at least emotion played somewhat into it. The second scene that I discussed in my paper is when Hunter has to decide between sacrificing some crew members who are trapped in a part of the ship that's got a leak. He's either got to decide between sacrificing them by closing the hatch and pretty much sealing them in with the water, or taking the chance of trying to help them, which they're in a really tough situation. It's pretty much like they're unsavable. So he's got to decide between closing the hatch or trying to save them by sending other crew members to take the risk of going to help them, and it puts the whole ship in jeopardy of taking on too much water and sinking too low of depths, which would crush the submarine from the pressure of the water. He ends up making the decision to sacrifice the crew members who are in deep trouble and don't really have a chance of being saved. he does this by ordering the other crew members to close the hatch. It's a decision that I feel it was really tough for him because he hasn't had a lot of combat experience, and he had to make a tough decision that's got to do with people's lives in the movie. I feel he made this decision based on morals and logic, not just procedure, because the procedure was pretty much to seal off the hatch right away, but he hesitated and kind of thought about it, decided what was best for everybody, and I feel this shows that he followed his morals and logic, of course, too, but the procedure would have been to close the hatch immediately. And he stopped and thought, is there any chance to save them, and how much risk is it going to be for everyone as a whole? This was a big decision for him that I think got him in favor with some of the crew who thought it was the right choice, but also some of the other crew, like James Gandolfini's character. I think he was pretty mad about it, because those were his teammates, his crew members. But in the end, the decision, a decision had to be made, and he likely made the best decision for the whole crew, because if they would have sunk too low, everyone would have been crushed by the submarine, even the people who were already in jeopardy, The third scene that I discuss is when Captain Ramsey is in front of the military panel with Executive Officer Hunter. This is a scene after the Russian rebels have been neutralized, they're back on land, and they're kind of explaining their decisions and controversies to the court. This shows that the panel tells them both that we're going with Ramsey's side of the story, we don't even need to hear Hunter's side of the story, and Hunter's a little skeptical because of their differences in arguments. It turns out Ramsey's side of the story that the panel explains, though, is that he requested for early retirement, and he highly recommended Executive Officer Hunter be made a captain of a ship in the future, or the captain of his old ship. I feel this kind of redeems Captain Ramsey's character as far as, he made a morally right decision by admitting he was wrong and that Executive Officer Hunter was correct, and it's kind of like the changing of the guard. He's turning over the keys, kind of saying, it's his time now. It's Executive Officer Hunter's time now. I feel this redeems Ramsey in a little bit, Captain Ramsey a little bit, or for the most part it does. But obviously he was getting a little wild in the beginning of the movie. But yeah, they talk about this after they leave the court. And they seem to pretty much leave on good terms with one another. They had a little bit of controversy in the movie, but I feel like they, kind of saw eye to eye, and even though they didn't completely agree with one another, they understood why each other were making the decisions that they made, and, following the orders, or, thinking about things logically and emotionally. One scene that I feel goes against my interpretation of the movie is when each Ramsey's recruiting team members and Hunter's recruiting team members who are on their sides, and they're kind of all, it's pretty much like, their team versus his team trying to take over the ship. I feel this kind of shows Ramsey's making decisions that are morally incorrect, because there's a couple different scenes where he's threatening to shoot some of Hunter's teammates and Hunter if they don't, tell him where the key is to make the decision on launching missiles and stuff like that. So my philosophical thesis is that overall, in a lot of these military movies and movies with hierarchy, you see the controversy between making moral decisions that are correct and genuine, or decisions that are following orders and based on procedure. But even though that last example goes against the idea that morally correct decisions will overrule the procedures in most cases, I feel that throughout the majority of this movie you can see that, the moral decision was the one that overruled everything. And although most members of military and authority members are trained to follow orders and procedures to the T, to keep the machine functioning well, the team mentality functioning well. Everyone's still human, and overall they'll most likely go with their moral judgment. So overall, it was a great movie, and I think there's a lot of interesting philosophical issues, and I look forward to watching it again in the future. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks.